G'day, Chief. Welcome to the Inner Chief podcast once again. And today we are going to talk all about the 3 questions you must be able to answer about your critical stakeholders, your internal customers. If you can't answer these questions, it's likely that at some point you're going to come up against resistance, or even find that at some point it might even turn into detractors. Now, at Chief Maker, if you know any of our frameworks, you'll know that we split stakeholders into 3 different types. Detractors, who are people who are, when you're not in the room, they're not supporting you. In fact, they're actively stopping you getting opportunities. They might be talking foul of you when you're not in the room. Remember, your reputation is what people say about you when you're not in the room, and in that case, a detractor is not on your side. Then we talk about advocates, and we sort of say advocates are a bit neutral. They don't do much in your favour or much against you. They're a bit, meh, whatever. Yeah, okay, fine, no worries. And then we have ambassadors, and ambassadors are people that promote you when you're not in the room. They go into bat for you. When you ask them to do something, they will get back to you as quick as they can with good quality work. These people want you to succeed, and they're the ones who are trying to offer you opportunities and jobs down the track. Stakeholders are critical, and in all transformation and in getting any kind of track record laid down that makes a difference for the company you work for, that leaves a legacy in a way that brings your purpose to life, in a way that builds the numbers that show people you can get it done, you have to have stakeholders that support you. It is probably the number one reason why projects fail. I'm not sure if the research 100% supports that, but in my experience now working in countries all over the world with project managers, transformation chiefs, CEOs, I can tell you right now, this is a massive, massive problem and a point of enormous stress where people simply come up against a brick wall and they don't know what to do. They get stuck and they're frustrated and it really annoys them. And a lot of the time, it means they give up and they just try and find work somewhere else. So, our job, though, Chief Maker, is always ownership precedes victory. You must own that relationship 100%. It's a little question you can ask yourself. It's not one of the ones we're going to talk about in a minute, but just write down quickly. What % ownership of this relationship am I taking? What % ownership? Because very often both parties have absolved themselves of ownership and no one's owning this relationship. Anyway, the 3 big questions I want you to be able to answer. In fact, you have to be able to answer this if you want to be really good at influencing tricky stakeholders. The first is, how are they incentivized? What are the bonus linked targets or the targets or KPIs they have that are linked to their personal incentivization? Okay, and just to give you an example, I was recently working with a client and they're working with a sales team, and those salespeople are incentivized by both revenue and the margin of the deals they do. Now, that can be a problem in an example where they're trying to drive up margin, when we might have a lot of salespeople doing deals simply to increase the size of the sales they're doing. So they get a much, much bigger revenue pie, and they can find that easier to do than actually get a margin into a deal. So what we found out in that situation was the incentives were leading to a range of behaviors that were self-serving, all done sort of within people's heads, almost sometimes outside of their conscious awareness even. Those incentives are critical, because if that person has an incentive to do something or to act in a certain way that isn't really necessarily in support of your projects, then they might well do it. They might do it passively, or they might even do it aggressively. So that's an important thing to remember. How are they incentivized? What are their bonus links targets? What are their KPIs and measures? Look at that. That's the first question you must be able to answer. The second question you must be able to answer is, what kind of pressure is their boss putting on them? Remember, we say our boss is our number one customer, right? Now, you have to ask yourself, what's going on for these individuals? When they're in their one-to-one with their boss, or they're presenting to their boss's team, what's going on for them, right? Are they getting heat on a whole range of other things you're not quite aware of? You have to dial into that, because then you can really get an understanding of what's going on for that individual. Your project or your initiative or the thing that you're trying to do with your team right now is going to be under pressure. And this is where we can see some really interesting dynamics play out in teams where people simply won't support each other because they're not aware of the kinds of pressure their bosses are putting on them. So what kind of pressure is their boss putting on them? The third question that is incredibly helpful to understand is, what is their personality? What is their preference? Now, I don't care what model you use, be it Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or DISC or the hundreds of other ones that are out there these days. If you have an understanding of this individual's decision-making patterns, their preferences for the way they interact with people, the kinds of styles they use in order to work and relate to others and make decisions, then you are going to be far better placed to customize your communications to them and get a better result. These three things, understanding the incentives, then understanding the kind of other pressures their boss is putting on them, and understanding their personality, will give you a deeper insight into then what you can do to customize your language, your communications, and create something that is a what's in it for them in working with you to build that trust. Remember, when someone comes to you and they speak your language, so to speak, you automatically have a deeper level of trust for them. If they show that they understand what's going on for you, you automatically have a deeper level of trust for them. When you take this information to answer those questions, your task is to keep that mindset of just build trust 1% at a time. Every interaction, one interaction after another, be consistent. Build that trust, and you'll find these stakeholders come over to your side and become ambassadors for you, which is just the ultimate in the organizational context. A whole range of people that just think you're doing a brilliant job. And you can spend hours and weeks of effort doing everything else, but if you don't have that relationship working and you've been avoiding it, that is the problem you have to own and get on top of right now. All right, Chief, that's 3 questions you have to be able to answer in order to influence key stakeholders.